So welcome everyone. I'm Chris Franklin and Roxy Peck is here with me. We have been trying to organize and moderate hopefully very useful K through 12 chats for you this year. And we thought we would end the school year with Camille Pace from the College Board. Let me tell you a little bit about Camille. She's the director of AP Statistics, and she works on the curriculum, instruction, and assessment for the course. And before her current role at College Board, she taught various statistics courses for 11 years and served as chair for 2 years at a small college in Georgia. And over that time, she helped create 3 different statistics courses using open educational resources that allow students access to free materials. Well, Camille is here with us today to talk about the new AP Statistics Framework, and I'm really excited to turn it over to her. I want to give her max time. So Camille, the floor is yours. And thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. I'm going to do it slide by slide. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them, and I'm happy to share comments and concerns. So let me go ahead and share. Okay. All right. Can everybody see my screen? Okay. All right. Let me do my slideshow. Okay. All right. Can everybody see that okay? I'm not familiar with Zoom because we use Teams all the time. So, okay.
Yeah, but we can see your notes on the side.
Oh, that's okay. I didn't put any. Sorry about that.
Okay.
This is weird. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So we did a course redesign, and before we even started that, we did the higher ed research. So what does that mean? We looked at over 82 syllabi from different institutions across the country to see what they were teaching. And then we did a faculty survey towards the end of 2023 to ask basically higher ed faculty, what do you teach? What do you teach but you don't think you should teach? What are you not teaching because of time or for other things that you think you should teach? So we wanted to gauge what they were seeing in their classrooms. And sometimes at universities and colleges, while you may want to teach something, your school may say that you don't have time to, or again, in a 16-week class, you just may not have time to get to everything that you want to teach. And we looked at textbooks analysis. So then the next thing we did is we reached out to professional organizations like the ASA, and we did our research. I did a lot of research looking at the GACE and the GACE 2, so I could get guidance on how we could improve the framework and, more importantly, the skills and the practices for the course. And then we went to a course framework writing committee, and that consisted of people from my development committee, from my who had college faculty and high school teachers, so that we could produce a 140-day framework for the course. And right now we're at the stage we are right now. We're at public comment and revision phase. So it's been posted for public comment. And once we get all that comments in, we'll start doing an analysis and see what revision considerations we have. And after that, and once we lock it down, we'll do a pacing study just to make sure that have the correct framework, the skills complexity, and the pacing. Because one thing I have heard in every meeting I've been in with newer teachers is they have a really hard time covering all the material. So we just want to make sure that what we stick with, we're pacing it correctly. Any questions about this slide? No? Okay. So our current course framework has 2 components. It has the statistical problem solving, process, practices, and skills. Well, right now we have skill categories. What we're moving to practices. So those are based on the ASA statistical problem solving process, because we want students, while they learn the content, to apply those practices and skills. And then we have the course content organization. We've changed it a good bit. We used to have something called the big ideas. Now we're just going to have the units, topics, learning objectives, which is what students need to know with the content, and the essential knowledge statements, which what students need to know to accomplish those learning objectives. So this is how the structure's changing. I have the next slide might help a little bit better. So this is how we updated it from the current course to the new course. So we have first skills, again, 4 practices, and we're going to go into those in a little bit more depth. I'm going to let you look at them so you can really see what we were thinking. And then there's 19 skills that align to each of those statistical problem solving processes. Previously or currently, what we have is 4 skill categories with 20 skills. The content, what changes are going on, we've put stuff into 5 units. Again, there's no big ideas. And then we have all the topics for proportion inference are in unit 3. All the topics for mean inference are in unit 4. And a little confusion right now is we took all of regression and we put it in unit 5. And that can be taught after any time you teach unit 1. And the reason was this is we were seeing a lot of teachers who were having issue with the pacing, and they may have 2 weeks before winter break and they didn't want to start proportion inference. So this way we can go ahead and give them that time to capture that, not to use that time. They could go into regression, and then when they get back, they could start inference. So there's a little bit more flexibility in your teaching schedule so that you can fit those times in when you may only have a week or 2. So, and again, our current course is 9 smaller units, and we have the big ideas. The instructional approach, so we're going to focus on solving real world problems and analyzing data while learning the topics. And we're going to emphasize those practices and skills. Where right now we kind of focus on learning the topics. We really want to merge the two. So when the students walk out, they may have never seen an ANOVA, but they will know the skills and the practices that they can easily perform an ANOVA beyond this course. Any questions about this? No? Okay. Okay, so the practices and the skills. So these are our current ones, and I think most people are familiar with them. Let's just go ahead and look at the new ones. Okay. So practice 1 is one that we currently don't have, or we don't assess it, and we kind of do it in a different way. We're going to formulate those questions, and we're going to determine a research question for a statistical study. So this is something doctoral students struggle with. A lot of students in any discipline really struggle with having valid research questions. So one thing we wanted to do is we wanted to bring a safe way for students to learn it in the bounds of the AP statistics course. So that's why you see that there. That follows the GACE, and it helps the students see the entire picture. Any questions about that practice? Because I know that's a newer one that we're going to assess. No comments? And right now there's only 2 EKs in the course framework for those. We are working on making more so teachers and students will understand what we're looking for with those questions. And there's going to be some slight changes to that. And we do want to have teaching materials available to help teachers with that. Okay. Practice 2 is collecting data. Again, we're just going to identify and justify methods for collecting data and conducting statistical inference. Again, 2A, you're going to identify the information you need to answer that question that you just determined, or one that you're given. And then you're going to be justify an appropriate measure for ethically gathering and representing the data. 2C, you're going to goes into our inference, and this kind of mimics what we do right now. But again, we broke them up into practices of that collecting data so that we sit together in those skills. And 2C, 2D, and 2E do deal with our inference, and they're pretty similar to what we do today. And the 2D currently right now is talking about the relationship between the different parts of confidence intervals. Practice 3 is analyzing data, constructing representations of data, and calculating numeric statistical outputs. So 3A, you're constructing those tabular and graphical representations, really getting into that exploratory data analysis. 3B, you're calculating summary statistics, relative positions of points within a distribution, and predicted responses. And then 3C really highlights the percentages and probabilities that we're used to in the course and the intervals. And 3D being the parameters for those probability distributions. And 3E is calculating statistical inference methods results. That includes your confidence intervals, your test statistics, and your p-values. So practice 4 is interpreting those results. And we're going to interpret the results and justify the conclusions and methods. So 4A really aligns with 3A. You're going to describe and compare tabular and graphical representations of data. 4B, you're going to justify claims based on statistical calculations and results. This skill will probably have some more EKs added because we'd like students to understand that when you're looking at samples and stuff, you can justify claims with that. You don't always have to do an inference procedure. And we want students to be very comfortable when they have to make a claim from, say, a histogram. We want them to be able to make those claims and almost do an exploratory data analysis that gets them into different steps. They could use in biology, they could use it in chemistry. It's really going to help them close the loop and think about data in a completely, and I say confident way. 4C is describing distributions and comparing relative positions of points within a distribution. 4D is interpreting statistical calculations and results. 4E, again, we're going back to that inference. You're going to justify your conditions, which is extremely important. 4E, you're going to interpret your results. And 4G, you're going to justify a claim for a statistical inference method. Again, 4B is not inference-based. 4G is. And we really want to start having it where students know the difference between the two and are comfortable with both. Any questions about this slide? Okay. Okay. And that's really all I have to share. And here's the link to the stuff. And I just wanted to see if we can, have a discussion. Feel free to ask me questions. I'm happy to talk about it.
You could feel free to just unmute, raise your hand, or put questions in the chat. Luke, I see you have your hand up.
Hi, Chris. Thank you. So I'm just wondering about a timeline of things. I know we're in the process right now where you're receiving feedback from the community. Do you have any anticipated or estimate of when the like final version of the course framework will be announced?
That's a good question. Unfortunately, the good thing is feedback goes through May 27th, but unfortunately I'll be at the reading getting ready to grade the exam. So, and the summer is pretty packed with other stuff. We're hoping, I'd say by the end of the year, we'd like to have it, situated, ready to go, but I'm not exactly sure when it's fully going to be released, but once we know more, I'm happy to share, but right now we don't have an exact date. So yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Dave?
Go ahead, Dave.
Hey, Chris. I'm a little concerned by the end of the year target.
Okay.
Those of us who are producing materials for the course, textbooks in particular, are going to need to have updated materials available for teachers by the following end of the year as they start choosing textbooks. We can't totally revise a course and all of the ancillary materials if you only give us a year of knowing what we're doing.
Okay. And I would bring that, you do work with people within side and College Board. I would talk to them about that timeline. But right now, I'm not sure when we will get it approved. But as soon as I know, I can let you know. So
talk to them. Who's them?
Don't people from College Board reach out to you about the dates and stuff? If not, I might be mistaken. Okay. Then I can get
Oh,
back
it's
to
you.
you. It's
You're
me.
our person.
Okay. I can let you, once I know more, I can let you know. Right now, like I said, I've got it. I'm going to the reading. I have to do all that stuff. And then once we get back together as a group with people within College Board and look at the comments, then we'll know where we're going. So.
Camille, the question was in the chat. When you say end of the year, were you implying December 31?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but it may be sooner. Like I said, I'm really not sure because of I have some other stuff going on too with like PBL and stuff. So, Dave, we'll try to get it back to you as soon as we can, but we do have to have discussions about the comments we made, and we really don't want to rush that to give it time based on what people have said. And if we need to do more research, we need to do more research. Okay, go ahead.
So I'll ask a question. So are you getting comments also about the changes in the content area?
We
Because there were a couple things, and I haven't gone through it in great detail, but there were just a couple of things that surprised me, and maybe I didn't look at it carefully enough. But you know, the college gaze document put some emphasis on multivariable thinking, and I didn't see anything reflected on that unless I missed it. And then
Correct.
it also looks at the idea of acknowledging and assessing risks associated with drawing conclusions from data. And I see that you don't need to be able to calculate error probabilities in order to do that, but you have to at least be able to identify what a type 1 error is and what a type 2 error is. And I didn't see any reference to that at all. So
Right. And
I'm
that
wondering if
was
those are,
removed because
yeah.
when we did the research for the colleges, and we will fully admit this, we went with stuff that was being taught in over 50% of colleges.
Mhm.
When you look at college syllabi, there's a lot of there's a lot of things that they don't put in their syllabi. So things could have been put in places that we had not seen. So again, based on the research that, from the community, comments, going back and doing more research, we really would like, if that's what the community feels and the research shows it, we will definitely put stuff back in.
Yeah, because I think there are some things that are just assumed in college syllabi where it says, carry.
Yeah, right.
They just
Absolutely.
assume that you can't do that without at
Right.
least defining, like I said,
Right.
I agree that you don't need to do any kinds of calculations, but to acknowledge the risk of error and assess that, you have to at least know what the potential errors are. So I
Right.
thought I'd throw that.
No. Oh, and that's a great point. Absolutely. And I will say this. We have a lot of teachers who feel very defeated because they can never get to through unit 8 and unit 9, which is chi-squared and regression and inference. And one thing I always hear is I ran out of time. My kids didn't get through it. So we were thinking of ways we could cut the material, align with colleges to let those teachers feel like they're not putting their students at a disadvantage. Because and that's one thing I hear over and over again is I'd love to do project-based learning, but unfortunately, I don't have time to do that in my classroom because I'm teaching up until like the week before the exam. So, and I think with the course redesign, we'd love to give teachers better ways to teach the material like project-based learning, which I think is going to be really exceptionally, I'm very excited for what we're doing, but I need to give teachers time to do that, and especially newer teachers who may still be building their confidence in the classroom.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised at some of the things that were taken out, like inference regression. It didn't shock me to see that.
Right.
I mean, I might do it in my course, but that didn't shock me. But there were a couple of other surprises that made me wonder about if it's coming from college syllabi. There are things like I don't know of any college that would cover hypothesis testing without talking about at least what a type one, so I think it's not called out in syllabi, but
Absolutely. Right.
yeah.
And we're, like I said, we're going to look at it. And if the community feels that way, and Dr. Peck, please put your comments in there because we really, really want them.
Well, I will as soon as I can type again.
Okay.
Well, since Roxy brought up content, I know I've seen a little bit of chatter about the chi-square test possibly being taken away. And it seems like, I mean, one proportion z-test, chi-square test, going to give you the same results, but a chi-square test, you can easily transition to multivariable.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine that's probably more widely used in practicing statistics. And as Roxy had mentioned, the Gaze report for college intro stats talks about multivariable and interpreting computer output,
Right.
not just TI-84 calculator output. But I'm curious as to, personally, I think I'd rather see the one proportion z-test go away and the chi-squares stay.
Right.
Or let the stem and leaf plots go away. That's a small piece, but um,
Yeah, I
maybe
can.
help me
Yeah.
understand sort of
Yeah.
the reasoning, or the, as well as I always thought the chi-square test, since it's in AP Bio, gave a really nice connection for interdisciplinary work, because the science teachers didn't seem to really understand it, especially from conditions that needed to be considered, or interpretation, or modeling.
Right. So the chi-squared, again, when we looked at the syllabi, chi-squared independence and homogeneity was being taught more than chi-squared goodness of fit. And it literally was sitting at that 50% line, like it was under 50%. And again, the thing we keep hearing is, I don't have time to teach my course, I'm behind. So we talked to some higher ed people and they said, keep homogeneity and independence, but get rid of goodness of fit. And that's where that came from. And I mean, and that's literally what it was. It was a cut line. We went above it, and that was it. And it's surprising because some schools teach both. Some schools teach goodness of fit, and some teach the other. So it's not uniform across the board, which was really surprising to me, because I know I taught it, but again, I was a small college in Georgia. So yeah. Technology. The big thing about technology is this. When we know that 50% or more of colleges are using technologies in the classroom, and again, we did research on this last year, this year, colleges are still using those calculators. They're still using the TI and stuff. And when we can see more than 50% of those colleges use technology, we're committed to getting there. But again, that's an access issue too. That means classrooms have to have computers. They have to have ways that students can do this. And it just can't be a phone. It's got it. We've got, there's got to be time and resources and the infrastructure to support this. Those are things that we really need to think about, because I know there's schools that don't have computers in the classroom that students can really touch. You've got one at the teacher station, but that's the limit to it. So those are the things we think about when we bring the access to all students. And again, would I love to be using technology? Absolutely. That is always my first wish, is give me technology. But again, we have to make sure every student has an equal opportunity to use it. And I hate to say that, that's the reality in education in the country, and it can be very discouraging for me, because I really want students to be able to leave this class with a set of skills that they walk onto their next class and be like, I've got this in bio, I've got this in chemistry, I've got this for our next statistics class. I see like I feel very lucky, and Trevor will support me in this, that I feel like AP Stats is one of those classes that all students should take because they may not get the chance in college. I mean, STEM students, you don't get the chance. You're going through the calc sequence. You may get to take biostats or something if you're a biologist, but I know my daughter was a chemist. She never took stats. The only way she took it is because she took it in high school, but she didn't even take it until she got to her PhD. And now she's a computational chemist. And that to me is amazing, that we don't make kids take statistics. I don't get it, but yes, Chris, I mean, 50% of my sample. That's what I did. We did a sample of 82. Okay. Why not survey AP statistics teachers. Because the course is given for college credit and we have to align to the colleges, that's why we looked at the college syllabi. We're asking now for the AP stats teachers to give us feedback on the CF. But we do have to align to college courses. That's why College Board has the process that we do. Okay, since the gay started with a phone. Determining and collecting data as unit 1. And then we thought around, Lee, can you tell me what you mean by that with your practice determining? Oh,
hi.
Go ahead.
Yes, I just was wondering, I thought when the addition of this determine a research question within the statistical study, the addition of that, I really like that. And I think it pairs so well with data collection because the type of question you have, determines how you collect your data. So I'd like to see those two connected.
Yeah, and they are.
So I wondered if there was an opportunity to have that as the first unit of the course to better align. Well,
you mean putting collecting data in there?
As unit 1 versus unit 3 or versus, I didn't know if that was going to be.
Oh, it's in unit 1 now.
After exploring one variable data.
It is. It's in that unit 1. It's right after that. Right. It's in the same unit 1. Yeah. We did try to put that all together. So.
But it seems to me that first you have to ask the question, then you collect your data. So it would make more sense to start with formulating a question and collecting data, and then talk about how do you now visualize your data.
I understand that. We have heard from teachers that starting with collecting data, many students are overwhelmed by that. So if you start with something safe, like exploring data, you get them in there and then you can teach them the best practice and there's new teachers that do not want to start right out the back with collecting data. They feel more confident doing that, exploring one variable statistics. So.
Let's see. Thank you.
Absolutely. Dave, I'm not sure I understand your question.
I've seen a lot of teacher comment about hoping this change doesn't happen until after they retire, because people have developed a course, and they've developed a course with topics in a certain order. You can easily skip over something that's left out, but to wholly move topics to different parts of the course puts a lot of extra work in the laps of teachers who are already overworked. And not just for that reason, but conceptually, I don't grasp at all why regression wouldn't be part of the initial exploratory data analysis when you don't have any intention of ever doing inference anyway.
You don't always have to teach the way we have it in the CF. There's a lot of people who don't.
I understand, but online materials that correspond to, online materials that correspond to currently correspond to the course and exam description, do things in that order so that things teachers want to access come at the time when they are ready for those topics in their classroom.
Okay.
If all of the College Board and everybody else's online materials change to the new order you're presenting, then teachers have to rejigger their courses as a result.
I understand that. And leave that comment and we will look at that comment. Mary Lou, I agree with you, but I still hear in every meeting that that teachers cannot get finished with the material. Many teachers don't even start till after Labor Day, and they are struggling to get through.
I never started till after Labor Day. I was able to finish the material. I'm not talking about the amount of your
No,
I start
I
after
was,
Labor Day
yeah,
too.
I was
Yeah.
And
talking to Mary Lou.
I always finish by the end of March. I know it's hard. And when I teach not an AP course and the pacing isn't as important, I might slow down, but this is a college level course. That's what it's supposed to be.
I understand.
And I can't slow down. You know, the
Okay.
kids have to keep up.
And that's fine. And that's good. I'm just telling you what I've heard from other teachers. I'm not going to diminish or minimize their voice, but
No,
this
I
is
think
what we've
every
been
AP
hearing.
teacher will say that the pacing is difficult and challenging,
I
but
agree.
it is what
Absolutely.
it is.
Absolutely.
If I could add to that, I I feel like it's one thing to be able to cover all the content, but I like the idea of being able to cover it and have time for projects and time for application. So I feel like that's maybe the goal here. And I personally really appreciate that goal because I feel like if I'm flying through the material and just quizzing them on it, maybe they learn something, but they don't actually apply it and they don't in meaningful context and they don't see the relevance of it.
No, I don't want to, I would just refer everyone to Luke Wilcox's Stats Medic. And I don't know Luke, but I've been using his resources for a while. And there are lots of real life applications of things. And the kids, I've been teaching it for a long time. And I just think that you can't slow down. And slowing down doesn't always help kids learn it better. Anyway, I would recommend Stats Medic to anyone.
Chris, I'm hearing from a different subset of teachers. I heard from we did a pilot project this spring, and I even heard from teachers who've been teaching 10 to 15 years. So yeah. And to me, that's not a new teacher.
I have a question.
Sure.
Yes, I didn't want to put it in the chat because it was too much typing. So
Okay, go for
good
it.
evening. So I am here in Houston, Texas at Yes Prep, and there are a few things that are happening. I, was thrown into stats because somebody left and I just had to do it. So next year I will hopefully get to teach stats. And a part of the issue was us figuring out what was, the new change is going to be, what needed to happen with that curriculum and whatnot. And so I am not as familiar as everybody else is. If I look at like the old CED and I see the unit with like sampling distribution, from what I am understanding, can you tell me if I'm correct where lessons or content from that unit plus the proportions and a little bit of the chi-square, that is what is all put together in the new one, correct?
Right, for unit 3. Absolutely.
Okay, that makes sense. And then in terms of content-wise, right? The reality is that we would like to have people who understand, right, the content and they can teach this to students. That just does not always happen at all. So it doesn't happen. So is there any place in which they can go to be able to like, one, get a good understanding of what this actually looks like? I just know that for myself, it took a lot of work. I do agree. I go to Stats Medic, I read the things, but there is a very big I guess it's a misconception that I took a statistics course in college. I can teach this, and then they get here and it's not the same. And so I know we have a very big learning curve for teachers, and it's a very difficult course for them to be able to teach because they don't know the content. But are there other places where they can go to figure out what does it actually mean to run these specific tests and how to do X, Y, and Z that I can give, as opposed to we can't give professional development to the entire district, every month. So other than AP Classroom, is there another place that they can go to?
For
From
College Board, it's
Board.
AP Classroom, or the teachers can go to APSIs, and that might be helpful. Yeah. I actually know somebody teaching for the Yes Schools in Houston. I want you to email me and I will give you her name, and she teaches AP stats.
Miss Walthall.
Yep,
Yes.
she's awesome.
That's my girl. Yes.
Yep, talk to Elizabeth. She's amazing. And she's part of project-based learning. So
yes,
absolutely.
I went to see the students do their presentations and whatnot.
Yeah,
Okay,
she'd be a good one. Yeah, absolutely. But you can email me and I'll try to connect you with some other teachers. Okay.
yeah, thank you.
Also, if you haven't checked out Skew the Script yet, they have some good resources for
Yeah,
teachers.
Dash's stuff
No, I
is
haven't.
amazing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just Google Skew the Script and that'll take you to some really nice resources.
And I would encourage you, if you're not a reader this year, maybe for the following year, try to be a reader. And I know we're really early this year, but yeah, just reach out to me and I'm happy to help you with that. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, it is included in there about binomial, about cumulative probabilities for binomial. We did keep that in there. We just took out geometric. So.
Camille, I put a question in the
Yeah.
chat about if you would mind commenting on how the new framework handles simulation.
As of right now, we've taken a lot of that out because of the technology. And unfortunately, we were not seeing it in more than 50% of the colleges. And I've talked to people about that. It's not getting taught on every campus in every classroom. It's just not, unfortunately. I know that's where stats is moving, absolutely. But again, we did that 50% mark to what was being taught in classes. And if you go look at many people who take AP stats for credit, if they go to business school, if they go to other things, they want them doing the traditional inference. And they may not want them doing simulations because that's beyond what's being taught in their classes. And it's unfortunate, but it's true.
Okay. I worry that it's going to cost you some acceptance at the colleges. Yeah. It's to me, it sort of felt like welcome to the stat course of the 90s. Welcome back. But so my big worry with it is that the colleges and universities that have moved on to that, will see this as a stumbling block and to their acceptance of AP stat. I hope that doesn't happen, but that's something that we to consider as well.
Roxy, please, Dr. Peck, please go ahead and put that in there and tell us what it does. So I'm not does 50% mark suggest that most colleges will not? I'm not sure what you're saying, Dave. The 50% mark was stuff that we could keep in and give teachers time to teach the course. Because again, that's what we are hearing from the community.
I understand, but the initial course always seemed to me to be the union of common college intro topics, so that colleges who taught whatever their intro course was, they would see their topics covered. If we go to the intersection of all those intro topics, then there are a lot of colleges who are going to look and say, oh, my topics are not covered, so we won't give credit anymore. I don't think 50%, I don't think aiming for credit at 50% of the colleges is a good metric.
Okay, make that comment. Feel free to make it. I could say the same argument for ANOVA. Many of the colleges teach ANOVA. We don't teach ANOVA, but they still get credit. But like I said, Dave, you're more than welcome to make comments, and we're going to look at every comment. Anything else? Stacey, I'm not sure if it's happening in other AP classes, unfortunately, because AP pushes in the humanities and I sit in the STEM, so I'm not sure.
Maybe I'm asking a question you don't want to answer, but is there any discussion of College Board developing an AP data science course?
When we have more colleges who will give credit for it, absolutely. We've talked about it. I'm actually going to a conference in June for data science for everybody at the University of Chicago to see what they've done. Yes, we would love to do data science once more colleges would give credit for it. I just know in the state of Georgia, for the 24 institutions that we have there, it was really hard to get all the schools to agree what an intro to data science course was. And Michael Posner, who is at Villanova, he's been working on a survey to send out to see what the themes are. And once we get that information, we'll be more than happy to look into it and see what we can do. But again, we want a course that students will get credit for. And again, and access. How are they going to learn the technology? Is it going to be R? Is it going to be Python? Can the students have computers? Again, it's that equity issue, but yeah, we are actively watching that closely, Chris.
I guess as a follow-up question, can you tell us in general what kind of metric College Board uses as to when they decide it's time to develop a new AP course?
I'm not sure that metric. I know that we just had pre-calculus and African American studies. I'm not sure what's next. I'm not sure what the metric is. I know for data science, like I said, we are monitoring that. And I'm really curious to what Michael Posner is going to get, and we'll go back to that. So
I have one more question for you.
go ahead.
Yes. Okay. So we are trying to make sure that we like improve the access, especially knowing that here we have like a very large EB population, and then we have a few students in there who receive accommodations. And I know our special pops team, they wanted to focus on the task verbs and ensuring that students understood what the task verbs were asking them on FRQs. Those are going to remain the same, correct?
Pretty much those would remain the
much.
same. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and if they change slightly, we will have them in there for you to see. We didn't give you the full CED because it hasn't been written. We're just so focused on content right now. But yes, you will absolutely have those so that you can work with those on those students and get them to understand what we mean when we say justify versus explain. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Any other final questions as we come up on time?
Well, since we have just a couple minutes, how is the new AP math course going?
Oh, pre-calculus?
Yeah.
It's going pretty well. I know Jason, who's the course lead for that, he leaves for the reading in a couple weeks, but it went off really well and it's going pretty good. Any other questions? Well, I'm going to encourage you to please fill out your comments. Like I said, we're going to look at all of them, and whatever we're looking for the themes and seeing what are people upset about, what are people happy about, and go from there. Again, the intent of the redesign really was to give teachers more time in the classroom to teach the subject and to actually do project-based learning and make those connections for your students. And again, I mean, that's what we kept hearing anytime we were at a conference or in a group of teachers is, I need more time and I don't have more time. So. Okay.
Well, Camille, thank you very much for joining us today.
Absolutely.
This is really very informative. And everyone, in case you didn't get the link, Luke put the link to where you can access the form for feedback on the framework in the chat. And I think at this point, I'd just like to wish everyone a great end of the school year and a happy, great summer. And we'll be back probably in September with our next chat. So just keep your eye out for the announcement. So unless there's not any more questions or comments, I'm going to sign off and say happy summer.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you again, Camille.
Oh, you're welcome. It was good to see you. Bye, everybody.
It was great seeing everyone on the chat.